Hello, and welcome to the Angry Sun Zone. I'm Alex.
I'm Santo.
And I'm Sean.
And I'm just getting right into it because today we're going to talk about a series of party games, of which there are many, and of which you can play with, believe it or not, your phone. That's right, we're talking about the Jackbox Party Packs today. A fun party game for all of the family, or maybe not, depending on how risque your group may get with these games that allow you to put in your own words. Before we get into that, I actually want to talk a little bit just about a game that I mentioned a few episodes back called For the King. And I've been playing a bit more of it. And one thing I wanted to say about it was that I think, did a disservice to the combat system in that game because I said it was very, very rote and that the combat didn't really matter too much and it wasn't very engaging. That's totally wrong. I was just bad at the game initially because I've since beaten the game a couple times and there's different campaigns. And I gotta say, it's got a bunch of stuff you can do in combat with like attack ups and buffs, debuffs, restoration of focus, curing and healing abilities. And if you have a party where it makes sense, there's actually a lot of interesting combos that you can pull off. For example, if there's an enemy that's immune to fire, you can make them wet, and then you can light them on fire. Why exactly that makes sense, I don't know, but that's a combo that you can pull off.
Are you spraying them with oil, perhaps?
I am not sure. Well, when you get enemies wet, it actually gets rid of their status immunities. So an enemy could be immune to being confused, or immune to being lit on fire, or frozen, or poisoned, or whatever. But when you get them wet, it removes their ability to be immune to status effects. So there's a bunch of like cool status effect combos you can pull off by getting an enemy wet and then doing something else to them.
Interesting.
Yeah, I did not understand what wet did on my first playthrough at all. And I've since realized that making people wet is an extremely powerful move.
Indeed.
Yeah, so, the combat system for the Kings actually can be engaging depending on your build. Definitely some mages with the right tomes or support classes like bards have a lot more options for that sort of thing than your standard melee brawler. But
Sound like sometimes when I've heard people talking about a game, it's like, I don't know, the combat's kind of one note. It didn't really interest me that much. Well, what class were you playing? I was playing as a warrior.
Yeah. Yeah, although I will say, even the warrior, even the sort of like standard, there is actually a lumberjack class.
A lumberjack class? That's amazing.
I think they maybe call it woodcutter, but it's the lumberjack class.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and actually I'm playing one of the campaigns I'm partway through right now. I'm playing my character that I'm playing as, one of them is just like a straight brawler, straight melee, like strength focused power character, and even he gets like options because like I found a flaming axe and it's got a couple different moves, but one of its alternate moves is just doing a power strike that even late game it can one-shot enemies, which is it's incredibly powerful. And but there's a lot of risk in using it, and you have to, in order to use it well, it needs to be paired with like another character that can replenish focus because it's hard to hit with. So the combat definitely gets a bit deeper, I think, once you get a bit more experience in the game and also are playing at higher difficulties where it's actually much easier to die. So
Nice.
You and also like the turn order. I think I mentioned the turn order is a bit weird in that game because it's kind of based on your speed stat
Yes.
And it's not a strict turn order where like everyone's necessarily going to go in
everybody
a set
gets
order.
the same amount of turns.
Yeah,
Right.
no. The amount of turns you get is effectively based on your speed. And if your speed is too slow, you might literally get half as many turns as the enemy with one of your characters. Which is totally what my strength-based character does, but it doesn't matter because he hits so hard. It's great. Anyway,
that's so you just had to experiment with different party configurations.
Yeah. Basically, once I had more party configurations, I kind of got a better understanding of how the game works, and also getting some more weapons and just figuring out, because there's a lot of status effects, and it's not always clear exactly how they interact initially, especially because the UI is terrible. Or rather, the UI is fine, but it has a manual which is very hard to parse, and there's no tutorial at all in the game, which is fine, I guess. Like, you don't have to have a tutorial in every single game, but it means that you're just spending a little more time like figuring out how it plays on your own. So
so it's not like the most out of the box experience.
No, it's not gonna handhold you and slowly introduce mechanics. So, oh god.
I keep trying to segue back into Jackbox Party Pack, and you just keep shutting me down, man.
Anyway,
these are rhetorical questions.
Yeah. Well,
Speaking of questions,
What's a game that asks you lots of them?
ooh, could it be the Jackbox?
that's exactly right, Alex. Wow, you just read my mind there.
Wow.
We're on the same level. So, yeah, we're gonna go over all the various Jackbox Party Packs. There's been 8 released so far. The 8th one was released like earlier this month, I think.
Yeah.
And we have, we've bought all of them. # not sponsored. And they're definitely some of our favorite things to throw down at any kind of event where we can get a bunch of people together. And at least me personally, I think that regardless of each individual game's design, I think the concept itself is such a good design, what they were able to accomplish, that like there are some packs that are pretty lackluster, but I still feel good about buying them just because I feel good about supporting this concept.
Yeah, and I mean, also, they've tried a lot of different things over the course of their sort of series, I guess you could call it, and there's no way you can come up with that many interesting party game concepts and have every single one of them be good.
When you're releasing one a year.
Yeah.
Or more than one a year.
Yeah, and so, yeah, it's definitely like supporting that sort of experimentation. I believe it. It's useful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the core conceit of all these games is that the controller is your phone. You connect to a lobby that is hosted on their Jackbox website, and those players are funneled into the actual game. Each person playing the game uses their phones as the controller. So if, for example, a lot of the games have word entry or drawing mechanics to them, you use your phone for that. It gets sent, and then it's displayed in the game that's running, just as an EXE through Steam or something. This makes the games pretty cool for streaming.
Yeah, some of the games have actually been built around streaming mechanics where the audience can actually participate, kind of halfway in selecting winners of, whose line is better, things like that.
And the amount of people that can be in the audience has increased over time.
Yeah.
With the second one, I think it was about 200. And then starting at 3 and beyond, they actually had audience cap of 10,000 people.
Jeez.
So you can definitely have quite, an audience if you're a streamer, and have a decent chunk of participation.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We got to get on it and build out our Twitch presence.
Damn right. Angry Sunzone on Twitch.
Do we have a Twitch?
We do have a Twitch.
Okay. Now, yeah. I think Sean. I think you
nerded it up
streamed on it a little bit.
Once upon a time. Yeah. So I definitely like and even within your own group of active players, there's a little bit of an audience-like feature in some games where you can vote just for kicks on things that you like or don't like. And I think that sometimes is actually leaning into the same audience feature. Mm-hmm. I think they get everyone else to participate through the same kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's a smart thing that they do because, like, a lot of these games, for some of them, you're trying to find the correct answer in a field of user-provided fake answers. And so the ability that they make is that you select which answer you think is right, and then you also get to award likes to answers that you think are funny.
Yeah.
So that's, a great way to build out just fun aspects of the game, because something that I think about a lot with these games is the concept of, implicit and explicit rules. Because a lot of these games have a point system, but the points, barely matter, really. Because at the end of the day, it's the journey, not the destination. As cheesy as that sounds with a lot of these, where nobody really cares all that much who wins in the end.
Yeah, it's really not the point.
Yeah, but the explicit rules of do these things to get points, that keeps people on track. But the implicit rules is to just fuck around, have fun, put in a hilarious answer once in a while just to make people laugh.
I feel like there's definitely what feels like a meta game going on at times with the points, where within your crowd, often if you are able to pull off, if you're with people that you know well and you're able to pull off the funny stuff, you're likely to win purely because you made someone laugh so hard that they're gonna pick that.
Yeah, I've certainly picked answers that I'm like, this probably isn't the correct answer, but it's so good that I want it to be the correct answer.
And, to the Jackbox Games developers as well, to their credit, over time, they've made a definite effort in making the prompts in the games that have prompts to be more and more just weird, so that they are difficult to tell from legitimate joke answers that people put in versus the actual, the prompt that you got to, make a drawing in Drawful.
Incorporating more punctuation and stuff.
Yeah.
To just make the answers simultaneously more human-like and more batshit.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So.
Yeah. The other thing I was gonna say is just that I feel like the Drawful games, in particular, are the ones where the prompts have gotten the most out of hand.
Yes.
We were playing the most recent Drawful, which is Drawful Animate. And so, quick recap if you aren't familiar. So, there's Drawful 2, and then I think Drawful Animate is the most recent one. And the basic premise is that everyone gets a prompt, and then they have to make a drawing. And then the other players get to see the drawing and then come up with their own caption. And then the people who didn't draw it have to guess which was the real prompt that the player who drew the drawing got for them to make the drawing, and they get points for guessing correctly. The drawer gets points for people guessing correctly. So you're encouraged to make a drawing that is clear and intelligible, but the aspect of just totally weird prompts is really making it hard to tell in the most recent installment. because the prompts are just weird.
You know what's interesting?
Which also results in absolutely hilarious drawings.
Mm-hmm. So the first Jackbox Party Pack was released in 2014. So they have actually kept a cadence of slightly more than one a year. And that one had the aforementioned Drawful, You Don't Know Jack 2015, and You Don't Know Jack is a trivia game with a very strange presentation. The questions are very off the wall and usually require you to think like 2 steps removed from what the question is actually asking to get the answer. I like that a ton. It also had Fibbage XL.
Fibbage is good.
Oh yeah,
and
Fibbage is great.
Fibbage was released standalone before the Jackbox Party Pack, and that's what really that was their first foray into this whole format, and it was a pretty big success.
Yeah.
And in Fibbage, you are given a prompt and you are trying to come up with the best lie that you can, and then it gathers up all the people's suggestions, puts them together with the answer that's the truth, and then everybody has to guess what the truth is. So very simple game, but really, really solid. There was also Word Spud and Lie Swatter, which are terrible, and I'm not going to talk about them.
Yeah, moving on. Then we had the Jackbox Party Pack 2.
Yep.
And then, since it's Party Pack 2, we had Fibbage 2.
More prompts.
Yeah.
And Quiplash XL.
Quiplash.
Quiplash is Quiplash is one of the best.
Yeah. And it's one of the best, I think, because it's one of the simplest.
Yeah.
Because it just gives you a prompt, and then you have to come up with a quip for it. Basically, anything that you can think of that will make people vote for it. Whether it's just on the nose, totally raw truth answer, or the funniest shit you can come up with. And so it's one of the games that just lets the participants' imaginations really run wild and come up with some of the most hilarious, some of the most offensive answers that they can.
Yeah, Quiplash is a game where I feel like the audience that you're playing with definitely matters a lot. I have tried to play some Jackbox games with family members, and it's been rough, honestly. Some of the older family members had trouble using their phone to navigate to the website, which makes me shake my head, but whatever. Everyone knows that struggle. And then but then the other thing too is just that the humor was lost between generations a little bit, I think.
But that can happen. But another thing that can happen is that because these games use your phones, if you're of a not boomer age, and you get some like-aged friends together, it can be a really fun time, even if the people in the group are not gamers.
Yeah, it's very good.
That's one of the best strengths of these games, because, if you tried to play some sort of trivia game on, the PS4 or whatever, and hand everybody a DualShock, is everybody going to, even know how to really use that well? And if you give somebody a controller, chances are there might be, a bunch of extra stuff they jam in because you're using a controller. And that can just, lessen the experience for something that's supposed to be, very light and casual.
Yeah, the simplicity afforded by just a simple web interface that allows you to type some stuff in or draw a picture or some other simple task really, really works well in the Jackbox games.
Mm-hmm. Another game that was in the Party Pack 2 was Bombcore, and that had the very unfortunate release timing where Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes, which is another, kind of party game, was released, not too long before that, and was, that concept taken to a much more insane level.
Yeah.
That, I mean, for us, like, I don't think we ever even played Bomb Corps because we were like, well, this other game exists that does it better.
Yeah.
I mean, keep talking and nobody explodes. You had to print out a literal bomb diffusing manual to use.
Yeah, it's a really fun game. Quick side note, if you are going to play Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes, I highly recommend the VR version if you have an Oculus Quest. Because
it's awesome.
Very much worth
not
it.
only is it really, really cool, but it's actually easier to use because the standard Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes, you have to separate the people that are diffusing the manual or reading the diffusal manual from the player who's interacting with the TV, which can be kind of difficult depending on your room setup. Whereas with the VR version, the person diffusing the bomb just goes into VR, and so you can basically use it anywhere, especially because you don't need a lot of room for that particular VR game.
Yeah. You can have that. You can put the VR headset on your face and sit down on a couch, and that's you're set
enough.
Yeah. One of the best applications of VR for a game that was not originally designed for VR I've seen.
Totally, yeah. And the other two games in this pack were Earwax, which, if I remember correctly, is it's kind of a fill in the blank prompt game where you use audio cues instead. And the unfortunate part about that was if you're in the same room as everybody else, you can't necessarily listen to the audio cues beforehand. There were less of them, I think, than just words that you come up with. So it, good concept. You got to play around with all forms of media, really.
Yeah.
If you're going to make these packs of multiple games to give to people. They didn't do the best job with it, but I don't know. It's not something that we played very much, but
I feel like between the format and the way they've packaged it, it almost seems perfect for them to be able to get away with producing a little crap, because then the ones that are gold, people are going to remember when they come out with the sequels for them, and they'll have the ability to slowly know which eggs to hone their baskets in when games keep surviving and doing well. So
totally, yeah. If you release 5 games in each pack, then taking 1 or 2 games to experiment with something and making sure the other 3 are good, that's a winning formula, because the ones that are universally good, a lot of people are gonna like. The ones that are a bit more iffy, some people probably like Earwax a ton, and others are others are like me and want and use Q-tips to get that thing out of their ear as fast as possible.
Sometimes people wonder why Earwax exists at all.
And
why does it even make sense? What's it doing? What's it doing in there?
Should I stick a wick in my ear and just have an ear candle?
That sounds more functional than anything I know of that Earwax does.
Oh my goodness.
And the last game in that pack is Bidiots, which it's a weird you draw pieces of art and then auction them between people, and you get little texts about whose I think whose picture is whose, and hints about that stuff. So you're just trying to accumulate the most money possible. It's
skip it. Play Drawful.
Yeah.
Yep.
Speaking of skipping it, we can go on to Jackbox Party Pack 3.
Quiplash 2.
Yeah,
that's more Quiplash right there.
3 was one of the most solid packs.
Murder Trivia Party came out.
Yeah, we'll have to see the rest of the packs to really jog my memory, but I think 3 is probably the best one, because there's so many winners here.
Yeah, we got Quiplash 2, which is just Quiplash but better with more prompts and
This one was the one with the T-shirt one.
yeah.
TKO.
This one had TKO.
TKO is the fuck, man. TKO is the best. TKO might still be my favorite.
TKO is a really fun drawing game. And yeah, I mean, the whole concept is that you're drawing T-shirts, right? Which is that's already from the get-go. I'm like, okay, I like it because it's giving your drawings a bit more context. So then you draw your T-shirts, and then you essentially do T-shirt battles.
Yeah, and after you draw T-shirts, then you're prompted to come up with as many like T-shirt slogans as you can, just like dumbass words that you want to put underneath the pictures that were just drawn, and you mix and match the picture that you're given with a funny prompt, and then that becomes the T-shirt, and then yeah, it's T-shirt battle time.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's almost, you could almost do the same game as like a meme battle, but because it's pictures and text. But the T-shirt is such an iconic format for a funny picture with silly text on it that it really gets you in the right mindset, I think.
Yeah, and it allows them to do one of the most genius pieces of like cross marketing that they possibly could, where afterwards you can order a print. You can order a T-shirt with printed one of the designs that you made.
Yeah,
for the game.
That's the most
hilarious.
Yeah, that's the most incredible merch opportunity in a video game I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, make your own fucking merch.
Yeah, just buy the merch you just made.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic.
I think the only game that maybe is even in the same league as that is when you could take your Pokemon Snap save data on the N64, go into Blockbuster, which the young kids don't even know what that is anymore, and they had a booth where you could literally print out stickers of the pictures you took in Pokemon Snap, which was just amazing. I loved it. It was just like such a ridiculous concept. It was a lot of fun though.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. See, that's the kind of shit I want in my games. Like dumb, weird physical things in random ass locations that you go and interact with. I don't want no fucking ARGs. Those things are bullshit. I want photo printers.
Yeah.
Other games in this pack, Trivia Murder Party, which I love me my trivia. What can I say? And this wraps it around in a spooky murder house aesthetic.
Yep.
Yeah, where, very appropriate. For the Spooktober season here.
The nice thing about it is, even if you're dead, you're not gone.
Yeah. The trivia continues until everybody except for one person dies, or everybody dies. And when you get a trivia question wrong, you play a mini game to determine whether or not you're going to die, or whether you might just be dismembered. One of the best little mechanics I've seen in any kind of like party game is sometimes when you lose, you are instructed to chop off one of your fingers. And the finger that you chop off corresponds to one of the answers that you can choose going forward. So if you cut off your index finger, that means you can no longer select option number 1 for the rest of the trivia game.
It can be rough.
And that inevitably, like a few questions, maybe in the next question later, you'll know the answer, but not be able to pick it because your finger's cut off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very fun twist on classic trivia.
Mm-hmm. Very inventive. Another game is Faking It, which Faking It is a game that really works best if you can get a lot of people in it, but it's a bit odd because the number of like actual players it supports is 3 to 6. It's one of the more limiting ranges that you've seen. A lot of them are like 2 to 8, 3 to 8, or more. Because Faking It is a find the imposter game where each person is given a prompt and they, answer truthfully, and then one person is given not given the prompt or given a very different prompt, and so they have to bullshit their way into whatever answer they give being a correct answer. If the prompt is something like, oh, what's your favorite movie, and then you get a prompt that's like, who's your favorite superhero, you might have to try and argue why, oh yeah, the first Spider-Man movie, that's totally my favorite movie.
Yeah.
And there's a few different physical things with it too, where...
Yeah, I seem to recall there were maybe some prompts where it told you to do an action.
Yeah.
And then it would give the faker a slightly different action.
Yeah,
and then
right.
And you'd have to justify why you're doing a different actual movement than the other people, or a movement that the other people think is different.
Yeah. Yeah, right. I think that's the main thing, and the prompt stuff comes at the end, where you're asked a very normal... You might be asked a question, and it's just like, okay, raise your hand if you think blank. But the imposter is given no prompt, so they have to just make a judgment call on whether or not to raise their hand or not. And then you need to find the imposter. So if something happens, and everybody raises their hand but the imposter, for a very simple question, then yeah, they have to come up with some kind of bullshit to make sure that they're not found out. It's a really, really good game, but it only really works if you have 6 people.
Yeah,
we tried it with 4 people and it just didn't quite work as well.
Yeah, very specific number of players that the game actually works for.
Yeah, but really cool game. And the last one is Guespionage. Now this one is one of the most interesting ones, because it gives each player it's a round robin where each player is given a prompt and they have to, a poll question, do you prefer X or Y? Those sorts of things. And each person the person who's answering the question has to guess what percentage of people answered that poll question that way. And then everybody else bets on whether or not the actual answer is higher or lower than it. So what Jackbox did is that they did a series of surveys for people and collected answers for these questions themselves.
Yep.
And that's what you're normally given. However, if you have enough audience members, you can make it so that the percentages are based off of your audience, not the surveys. So if you have, a very defined audience for, your website or your streams or whatever like that, then that can very, very much influence the data that you get, because, this isn't no double-blind population here. This might be a bunch of game nerds.
Yeah, also if you have your stream determining things, you might end up having your audience start trolling you with the answers, which would be hilarious, and also exactly what I expect.
Yeah.
But of course, you would also know what kind of audience you have, so...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so...
Yeah, I definitely think that one seems like it could be a lot more fun if you have that going on. I seem to recall, just on the built-in stuff, that it was fine, but not amazing. I actually think that... I don't know if we want to jump to this one, but the Jackbox Party Pack 8 has actually a game that is in some ways similar.
Right.
The pole mining game.
Yes.
Yeah.
Although, frankly, I like that one a lot better.
Yeah, because
that espionage.
That one is polling the people in the room, not you have to guess on just a random population.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that. But yeah, Party Pack 3 was really, really good. when the worst game in it is, fine, like that's a winner right there. And it's got, a couple of the best games that they've ever made, too. So that one's tough to beat.
That one is tough to beat.
So Party Pack 4.
Starting off, it has Fibbage 3, which is obviously the third Fibbage. Fibbage 3 Fibbage. Fibbage unos plus dos equals...
Reboot camp.
I don't know. Anyway,
Fibbage 3.
I actually think that with Fibbage, that the games basically kept getting better, just because it's broadly the same game, but the prompts are getting wackier and harder to distinguish from player answers, which I think helps the game a lot.
Yeah, and this Fibbage though has a little secondary kind of game in it called Fibbage Enough About You, which this is a game that you should play. It's fun to play with, a bunch of people that you know quite well. Playing it with strangers can be kind of hit or miss because the lies are now about each other. To where, it asks a prompt like, what song would you want played at your funeral? Santo, and so I would put in my real answer of, what song I want to play at my funeral, and everybody else would put in, a lie to try and fool people. So you get to find out, what people think about you and what your tastes are. It's really, really funny and sometimes quite revealing. Yeah, it's one of my favorite ones for sure, because it's fun to find out these like weird deep dives on things about people sometimes.
Yeah,
and as well trying to like play on people's perceptions of other people.
Yeah.
I sound like a fucking sociopath right now. Jesus Christ.
It's so funny. This game brings the best out of you.
I like thinking about how people think. Oh boy.
It's the meta-sociality.
Oh no. Other games in it. There's Monster Seeking Monster, which is a hidden information game where a bunch of people are different monsters. They try and date other monsters. Each monster has a specific victory condition.
The spookiest monster of all, the mother.
It was man all along.
Not the mother, the mummy. It's fine. You need a fair amount of people for that.
From what I remember, although Fibbage 3 was the best Fibbage, the rest of this pack was a bit of a letdown.
Yeah, a little bit. There's also bracketeering, which takes way too much time for what it is, where basically you're just like pitting answers to questions in a bracket, and you go through the entire bracket, and when it's, fairly similar from the start of the bracket till the end of the bracket into what you're doing, needs to go at a faster clip than it actually does. So we didn't play that one very much.
Yeah, I also think that particular one would benefit from something like larger groups, because the
audience voting,
like the fun of something like that is actually just like the arguments that people get into, and it's just not going to be that exciting unless you have a bunch of people. Yeah, like two people arguing, like trying to debate their points against each other. It's more fun if there's a bunch of people voting on that than like two more people voting on that. Yeah.
Survive the Internet. I don't even remember this one, which must mean it's terrible.
Yeah, I'm struggling to remember it as well.
The only thing I remember is that it had an internet aesthetic to it, but that's about it. Let's move on from that.
Yep, moving on.
Civic Doodle was the last one in there. That one was all right. You were designing various murals to put around a city, and this one is a drawing game where maybe all of the drawing portions of it is you draw and then build off of other people's drawings. So you're drawing in like small pieces. So you can eventually end up with these Frankenstein monsters of graffiti that you're throwing around this town as part of the beautification project.
Yeah, I like the idea of adding on to other players' drawings and building the drawing over time, but I feel like it just didn't quite work well enough.
Honestly, I think the reason we didn't play this one as much is that the rest of the pack kind of sucks. So we usually never thought about it.
That may also be the problem.
Jackbox Party Pack number 5.
Mad verse City.
Fuck
Oh
yes.
my gosh.
Yo.
That game.
Rap battles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's literally a rap battle.
Text-to-speech rap battles.
The text-to-speech really adds a lot. They've got this robot aesthetic where you're like rap battling robots, and the text-to-speech, I feel like they made it intentionally just a little bit janky. Or maybe not intentionally. Maybe they just leaned into it.
Yeah, like, yes and no, because, like, yes, it's a bit janky, but they also made sure that every different robot had, like, their own, like, little accent to the text-to-speech.
Yeah.
So, it's pretty damn well done.
Yeah, it's quite funny, although definitely the skills of the writer make a big difference.
Yes.
Because if you have bad meter and rhyme, it's not going to be fun to listen to.
Yeah, you can't rely on the flow to save you because it's a frickin' robot. Though sometimes robots will help you in ways you didn't expect, to where, you know, in all of these games pretty much, a lot of them, if you don't enter a prompt in time, it'll just like X you out. Though some of them will like put in a prompt for you.
Yeah.
Or like a fake one to try and trick people in the case of Drawful. In Mad vs. City, it comes up with a line for you. And it's not smart enough to detect what phonemes you're using to make it properly rhyme. And so sometimes it'll just spit out some non sequitur bullshit that's more hilarious than anything anybody else thought up of that round.
Yeah. You get, as Bob Ross puts it, happy little accidents.
Yeah. Rumpelstiltskin. Yeah, that's the big... I want to say that's the big standout from that pack, and it is, but there's another couple that are really, really good too. There's another You Don't Know Jack, You Don't Know Jack full stream, and this one is so fucking funny because they put it in the aesthetic of You Don't Know Jack launched a TV streaming service. So they're just playing into that with a bunch of just like fake TV shows that have so many hilarious jokes attached to them. It's such like great satire of just like bullshit filler that's on so many of these TV stations. And it's still just, super fun trivia that's presented in a really humorous way. Split the Room, that's another one that benefits with a lot of people, where you're asked quote-unquote controversial questions. You need to fill in prompts to basically try and split the audience. You get the most points if exactly half of the people are on one side and half of the people are on the other of whatever prompt you're answering. Again, it's fine, but again, you need a lot of people for it.
Yeah.
Zeeple Dome is like...
Zeeple Dome.
I heard it was like some weird Angry Birds thing, so we never played it.
Yeah, I think that's what it's like. It's you pull back on the screen to like shoot slingshot.
Okay, it's Angry Birds.
Yeah.
And then the Zeeples come out.
Yeah. And the last one is Patently Stupid, which this is the first of the improv games that they've released, where basically the star of the show are the people, where you're given you're all trying to come up with inventions. So you you're given like a weird prompt. You have to draw a little napkin drawing of your product. You have to come up with a slogan for the product, and then you have to pitch the product. And people vote on how good the pitch is. And the pitch isn't you typing it out or anything like that. The pitch is you literally like standing up and telling everybody else why this product is awesome, and completely improving the entire thing. So this is another one that does. It depends on the comedy chops of the people that you're playing with, but it's the presentation is, it gives you enough things to latch onto that even if you don't think you're the most quick-witted person, I would still like suggest trying this out at least a couple times, because I think that there has been some comedy gold that has come out of some really stupid shit when we played this game.
Yeah, I think I like all of the improv games that the Jackbox series has had so far. This isn't my favorite one. We'll get to that. But,
oh yeah.
but this is a very fun one to play, and I think depending on your familiarity with like improv games in general, this one I think is actually a bit easier because I think that it's a bit more structured. Like, it's much easier to pitch why my invention is awesome over one of the other games that I'm thinking of, which we'll get to, which is also very fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's number 5. That's a really solid pack. That's like so far my number 2. I mean, come on, rapping robot battles. Who doesn't love that?
So good. Jackbox Party 6?
Yes, 6 is the next number.
Trivia Murder Party Do.
Yep, the Jackbox folks were correct in what game to give a sequel to here, because it's more Trivia Murder Party, and it's, more fun trivia, even more
murder,
even more morbid minigames. Yeah, it's still a good time.
Don't lose your fingers, folks.
Yeah. Next game in this pack is Role Models, which is an interesting one. I think it's another one of those ones that's better with a larger group. I mean, there's a lot that are better with larger groups, but some of the ones that are classics, can be played with smaller numbers. But yeah, so the Role Models is basically like the core of the game is essentially that you're almost just trying to stereotype your own friend group.
Yep.
And I can't remember exactly how you get. I think you get points for like getting it right, as in like what the other people are saying.
Yeah.
In terms of, say, like, if one person has a role, like you might have a role of, like an example is like the heist category, where one person's the brains, the muscle, the driver, the distraction.
Yeah, and you put each person that's playing into one of those different roles, and if you get it, the most correct, like if everybody leans towards a consensus, then you get points. Who doesn't love points?
Yeah, and so you're both choosing the role. You're both ranking the roles, and then also trying to figure out what everyone else ranked the roles as, if I remember correctly. Yeah. And then you get points for how you did. You get points for how you guessed other people's choices, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that one a fair amount. Though we haven't played it all that much.
Yeah, we haven't played it that much. I think
I think because this is a weeker pack.
It is. Yeah, it is a bit of a weaker pack.
And speaking of why this is a weaker pack, the next game,
Joke Boat.
Fucking Joke Boat.
Joke Boat might be my vote for the worst game in the series.
It's not the worst game in the series. However, it's the stupidest one for sure. Oh, god damn it. You're just saying really dumb jokes. And they're not funny jokes. So it just became a game of just like trying to deliver jokes as weirdly as you could, whether that be a dumb accent or as deadpan as possible. They wasted the name Joke Boat on this.
They did. Yeah, Jokebot's such a great name, but this is not a great game.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. Dictionarium is a game where you're... I believe you... we didn't play this one that much, but I believe it's a game where you're coming up with new words for shit.
Yep. You're creating a dictionary entry for a made-up word.
Yeah. Which... maybe we should have played that one more, because that's a really good concept.
It's a good concept, yeah. I can't remember how well it worked, to be honest.
Yeah, like, that's one of the ones, like, again, like Earwax earlier, where it's entirely possible that was a good concept that was dragged down by poor presentation or poor flow.
Yeah.
So there's another one later on that we'll get to that. Again, good concept, bad flow.
Yeah.
Push the button, that's the, like, pseudo Among Us game, where you're trying to find a who imposter, who sus,
Yeah.
in a series of minigames.
Yeah, it was okay, but it wasn't great. I felt like the pacing was a bit off.
Yeah, because you have a time limit, like a overall time limit that you have to follow. So any individual thing I just felt too rushed while playing this. That, time limits for games like Werewolf and that, like, they prevent it from becoming just gigantic shouting matches, which can sometimes happen, where, if the entire game is to lie, if you just keep arguing about whether or not people are lying, that can sometimes turn not fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's tough to say. Like, I think sometimes timers are good, sometimes they're bad. It really depends.
In this case, it was just a bit too rushed for me.
Yeah, I didn't like it that much. And I say this as someone who loves, like, hidden information games. I once played a 3-hour game of Werewolf at a con with like 100 people in it or something.
What the fuck?
Dude, it was insane. It was completely insane, but it was so fun.
Were you a werewolf?
No.
Oh.
I was not.
Oh. Yeah, that does sound dope.
Yeah, super, super fun. But this ain't it. Play One Night Werewolf instead if you want a hidden information game. Now that's a good game. Like, Fast Werewolf is... You can do Fast Werewolf games. Like, they exist.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't it. Anyway, then we get into Jackbox Party Pack 7.
Lucky number 7.
Lucky 7, yes. This one has Quiplash 3. Again, very much in the same vein as the other games that have had sequels. I generally think the sequels are better just because they're getting a bit wackier with the prompts, which makes it harder to distinguish.
Claymation aesthetic. That
yeah.
helps a ton.
Yeah, Quiplash 3 also has a claymation aesthetic, which is super cool. Very, very nice presentation on that one.
Then we have The Devils and the Details. And this is the first one I'm going to have to click into because I fucking forget what this one is.
I do too.
Involves players as devils trying to work together to complete a list of mundane chores, but able to trick other players into skipping or completing the wrong chores. We never played this one.
I don't remember this at all.
Yep.
We did not play this one.
We may have to do an addendum.
Yeah.
That's weird. I thought we played everything at least once.
Well,
you know what I think happened?
I think I know what happened.
I think what happened is we played some of the other games in this pack because they are so good.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? We streamed this to play this, remember?
We did stream this pack.
Yeah. So, we definitely got carried away with some of the other ones. Champed Up. Where you're...
Champed Up.
Champed Up's really fun.
Oh, god damn it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so Champed Up is it's another, like, battle drawing game. And essentially you get a champion, and the champion is like your prompt, right? So you might get something like the champion of
letter writing.
Yeah, something ridiculous, right? Or I'm trying to remember. There was a really funny one we had, like the champion of
We had the champion of middle management.
We we had the champion of middle management once. I think I once had the champion of cheese. So you get a silly like thing that you have to make a champion of, and then you draw a fighter that like would embody that aesthetic, and then another player gets your drawing only, and then has to draw a combatant, which is the challenger to that title, but they don't know what the title is, and they just have your drawing to go off of. So it's you can get some really funny competition, and then people vote, right? So at one point, like one of the times we played this, we had this absolutely hilarious string of fights where there was a series of car drawing of like vehicle drawings that got drawn.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the original champion was.
It was like utility van or something.
Yeah, utility van. And so we had like a series of of silly vehicles fighting against each other. And it was actually kind of interesting because some of the drawings were better or funnier on their own, but then given the actual champion's title, it totally changed what you were going to vote for. So it was it's a very dynamic, competitive drawing game. I think probably a bit more dynamic than TKO in terms of how much it changes, maybe, but it's hard to say. They're both really good and they're different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another game in the pack is Blather Round, where the person's given a prompt and they have to make other people guess that prompt. It could be anything like, Alaska or Neon Genesis Evangelion, which was one of the ones that showed up. And you have to give hints, but the hints are extremely vague. And so, for example, for Neon Genesis Evangelion, I'm pretty sure I put down it's a story about a young existential crisis. And you just keep giving like little breadcrumbs of hints to try and steer people towards being able to guess the right answer. It's fine.
Yeah.
Talking points.
But yeah, I want to save this one for last because Talking Points is the other improv game.
Yeah, Talking Points is honestly, I think it's one of my favorite games in any of the whole series.
Yeah.
It is so fun.
It's incredible.
It is an absolutely stellar game. So like Santo said, it's an improv game, and actually it's quite funny because there's a improv troupe based out of Edmonton called Rapid Fire Theater. And Rapid Fire Theater, I believe, actually pioneered this format, a improv comedy format, which they call an improvised TEDx talk. And so, yeah, these two guys, essentially, they're both really talented improvisers, and they would create a slide deck for each other that the other person hadn't seen ever before, and then they would, during the improv shows, get the title of a TED Talk, improvised TED Talk, from the audience. And then basically what you're doing is you've gotten the topic of your TED Talk randomly from your audience, and then you have to improvise a talk to slides you've never seen before. And that's essentially what this game is. It's essentially a stripped down version of that improv comedy format that's much easier to get into since the slide decks are auto-generated.
Yeah. Like one person's the presenter and one other person makes the slides. So there's like 3 stages where you choose a different slide for the person.
Yep.
And it's so fucking funny. Like,
yeah.
The 2 funniest moments of my life, when I've laughed the hardest I've ever laughed, one of them was when we saw the improvised TED Talk. So when I heard about this game, like, I was over the moon, like, oh my god, I can't believe they made this. And it certainly lives up to that. The other time was playing Drawful on a stream. where like somebody was streaming and they had, you know, a fair amount of not a huge audience, but like maybe like 50 or so people, and I got in for the drawing, and I made a drawing that so the prompt was, "This comic is awful," and so I drew lost.jpg. And the reactions of the people who were streaming was fucking gold, because they got it immediately.
Nice.
That's beautiful.
And so they were like doubling over laughing.
I mean, I honestly, I cannot believe that the Lost meme is like going so hard.
Oh, it's so good.
Like it, even
sometimes people will just post like a 4-panel thing with no text on it, and just like, what is this supposed to be? Oh, it's Lost.
Oh man, that stick bug meme that was going around for a while. Like there was a Lost version of that stick bug meme that like it got me. It got me hard.
Yeah, but
yeah, this is by far one of the funnest times I've had with the Jackbox games. And that said, it is a bit of a, I think
it's taxing.
It is. Yeah, it's probably one of the most involved, because you are just fully improvising a weird, business formatty kind of talk. And to PowerPoint slides that you've never seen before, which are weird. So it's
very weird.
It's like, it's challenging, and I can definitely say that a lot of people might be uncomfortable with this game, because it pushes you out of your comfort zone very intentionally. So, but if if you've got some friends that like improv, or are just, able to be, quick thinking a little bit, you don't have to be amazing, but
I will say, so I tried this game at my work, because I thought it'd be great working with people who, work with presentations quite often. What I found was interesting was that there was quite a few people who, it was surprising that even though they gave a great presentation, if you put them on the spot, they were not able to participate very easily at all.
Yeah, you found out that day which members of your company spend a week prepping for a presentation, and who doesn't.
Yep, it was quite genius. It was quite interesting to just see this sudden change and shift and peel back of reality. And I think it was also quite funny to just conversely, show that improv-y side to my coworkers as well, and get a kick out of it. So, yeah. Talking points. So many good times.
Yeah, very fun. And I will say also that although it is an improv game where your physicality is important, you can actually stream this one really effectively as well. We did that a few times.
Yeah, we streamed it, and I don't think everybody had a webcam. And
no.
It still worked great.
Yeah, even just voice alone, it's still doable. So it's definitely a good one. Yeah, we haven't really talked about that much yet, but definitely some of the Jackbox games are able to be played fully remotely, which since the pandemic,
since we're in the end times,
it's very important.
Sean, you brought Jackbox games to your job. Well, maybe you'll bring this next one in, because in the Jackbox Party Pack 8, we got Job Job.
Oh, I love Job Job.
Job Job's pretty good. Something that like we've brought up in Fits and Starts is that the aesthetics of some of these games, and Job Job has like probably the best aesthetics of any of the games. Like the presentation in these games is fantastic, where there's just like a bunch of really good art. And Job Job is all about like...
Job Job is Job Job is the hardest hitting satire in the whole series. Aesthetically.
Of the interview process. Where like you are being interviewed by a sentient water cooler. And there's like...
All the prompts are sort of interview question themed, kind of. But they're a bit weird, of course.
Yeah.
Because it's Jackbox. But the aesthetic is just this hilarious, like 90s era PowerPoint slide garbage.
Full of all the Office 95 word art you can handle.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty funny, especially if, you're our age and you have
fond memories of the wavy blue overlap font.
Yes, the wavy blue overlap.
But as far as how the game works is each player is given prompts and they just fill it out with kind of whatever you want. But the catch is you have to use at least 5 words. And longer answers are better. The reason for this is that with those words that you put in, other players get those words to try and make answers to other prompts that people vote on. And you're only limited to the words that are in other people's answers, as well as words that were in the prompt originally. So it works well if people are being creative with their answering. I definitely, like, after the first round, like, okay, I'm gonna try and, like, put in as many, like, weird words that I can for other people to use in hilarious ways.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one, but I think once you get your mind around, like, how to answer the prompts so that you can then use the answers, the words in those prompt answers, to answer the interview questions, it gets a bit better.
Yeah, like trying to throw in a proper noun into a question. Yeah, it can make for some funny answers down the line.
Yeah, it's a fun one though, because you're very, very restricted when you're actually answering the questions that get you points, and sometimes the answers are funny because you have very limited palette to work with. But sometimes that palette can be too limiting.
Yeah, there was one time where I'm just like, I could make something that would flow really hilariously from a comedy standpoint if I just had the word it, but I didn't. Oh, also, punctuation. I started throwing in punctuation like all my answers. I want people to be able to work with exclamation points and question marks.
Yeah, so that's definitely it's a bit of a weird one that I think maybe it almost has a learning curve.
Yeah,
to make that one fun. But it's absolutely got it's got a hands down, like, one of the most entertaining aesthetics of this series.
There's motivational posters in the background that we swear are machine generated.
They seem machine generated. Sometimes they're hilarious. Yeah. Other times they're just, like, weird.
Just complete non sequiturs.
Yeah. Sometimes it's a non sequitur that becomes quite funny, though.
Mm-hmm. So the next one is the pole mine, which we talked about earlier, and this one's great. Yeah. I really, really like this one.
The pole mine's really fun.
It is.
So basically, the pole mine, the whole concept of the pole mine is that players kind of get asked to rank certain choices on arbitrary metrics.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
one that was a fairly normal one, maybe like order which parts of your body you wash first in the shower. And so, like, that one, there were some consensuses that we could come up with between us. Like there was a lot of people wash their hair first.
There was a general trend of top to bottom, right?
Yeah.
Which makes sense, right? Because that's just a good way to clean anything. But the details were hard to figure out. And there was some, confusion at a couple of the answers where we were just like, how does someone wash that part before that part, right?
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it brings up debate because you're split into teams to try and answer, what's the top 3 answers, or what's the second through 4th best answer, or for the last round you rank them from worst. You try and figure them out from worst to least responses to most responses. So you have to talk it out with your teammates, but...
And then there's also the aspect of trying to talk it out with your own team about what you voted for without giving too much away to the other team.
Information is power in this game.
So because, like, if, I voted for one thing, like, at the very top, I don't want to reveal necessarily that I totally did that and give the other team that information that's where I voted. So you kind of have to talk around things a bit. And sometimes the things that you're asked to rank are bananas.
Oh, yeah. Like, I think one of them we got asked to rank continents based on shape alone, how well they would perform in a fight.
And
which is just like, what kind of question even is that, first of all? And then second of all, people have very different opinions on what that means.
yes.
And third of all, the moon.
Yes. There's only 7 continents, and this game always has 8 answers. So they put in the moon. And that like threw a complete wrench in the ointment, because I put the moon as the very top. Because I think, circular thing, that's going to do really well.
It's such a strong defensive shape, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not a continent.
Yeah, so some people rank that super high, some people rank that super low. And
Yep.
I thought North America was a shit shape to have in a fight. But North America ended up being like second from the top.
I thought North America was a great shape because it's got a lot of weapons on it, right? You got Florida, boom. Alaska, boom, right? Newfoundland and Labrador. It's sharp. Yeah. Mexico is like a dagger or something. Anyway, so the pole mine's a really fun one, and I think we were talking about espionage is kind of similar earlier, but the pole mine's just strictly better, honestly.
Yeah, and you might it kind of works both ways, kind of like something like role models, where if you know the people you're playing with very well, that can help, but I don't think that's a prerequisite for the other games. I think this one, even though you're trying to guess how other people rank things, the fact that that you have to talk it out with your team, I think lessens that enough that you can play this with some people that you might not know super duper well and still have a great time. Yeah, because the debate fuels that.
Yeah, for sure.
Next on the list, they're so fucking smart. They're so fucking smart. Drawful. Animate.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's amazing what a second frame can do for a game.
Yeah. So Drawful is amazing, and Drawful Animate is basically the same as the previous Drawful games, except now you have 2 frames instead of just a single static drawing. And I gotta say, it is incredible how much communicative power you can get out of a single 2-frame image versus a still image.
Yeah. Things like speed lines.
If a picture is worth 1,000 words, Drawful Animate gives you 2,000.
Yeah. And then also it gives you the ability to convey action way more powerfully, and they clearly understood this very well when they were writing the prompts, because they've got a lot of prompts that are really strongly, verb based, and you actually have to use the expressive power of a 2-frame animation in order to make people understand what your prompt was.
I got one that was fish with bulging eyes, and if just a single prompt for that, chances are people are just gonna be like, "Wow, you suck at drawing eyes." But because I had 2 frames, I could make it very clear that my fish was going awooga. And so, a lot of people were actually able to answer that correctly.
Yeah.
So
I think that was a very high percentage correct on that one. I had a drawing of a pumpkin that had been left out after Halloween for a month or 3 months or something like that. And so I drew a pumpkin that, in the first frame, I drew a normal Halloween pumpkin, and in the second frame I drew a sort of smushed, collapsed pumpkin. And you could convey the passage of time even in a 2-frame animation, which you would not be able to do very effectively in a single drawing. So I really like Drawful Animate. It very good, and they've gone really wacky with the prompts again. Just over time, their writing team has just gotten so much experience just writing zany prompts that are hard to distinguish from the joke answers that people put in sometimes. Like sometimes I'll look at an answer and I'm like, oh, that's so funny. I want to give it a like, and then it's just the actual prompt.
Totally. And you also get to draw in Drawful you draw, your little avatar of who you are, and in Drawful Animate, you can draw the 2-frame animation of it.
Yep.
Opens up so much more comedic possibilities for representing yourself.
Yeah, very, very good, amazing Drawful game.
The first Drawful game to add 100% more value into the game.
Yeah, that's so true. You get to draw more.
Yeah. So this game, now, the Jackbox Party Pack 8 overall is a great pack, but even a great pack has a misfire, and the misfire is the Wheel of enormous proportions.
The Wheel of Enormous Proportions.
I'm not gonna lie, I was really excited to play this after seeing the trailer, and then I played it, and it was very disappointing.
Steaming piece of poo.
Like it's got trivia, and the trivia part of it I think is pretty good, where it asks you like how many of these things are like correct, basically. So it throws a bunch of answers there, and there's a couple like pretty funny joke answers in there that they put, and so you have to suss out, okay, like I think one of them was like, which of these are like organs or something like that.
It had a question, which of the following are
part of the whatever system. Like one of the body systems, like the limbic system, or endocrine system.
Yeah, which of the following organs are part of the endocrine system was a question that I got almost perfect.
Well, yeah, not all of us know how the human body works. I got mostly wrong, and so like that part of it's fine, but it takes kind of a while, and then you just get to this like part where you're just spinning a wheel over and over again, and that part also takes way too long, and that's how you get points. And how well you do on the trivia is how many spaces on the wheel you get to take up. And it just doesn't work. Yeah,
the wheel portion is very tedious. And it's I know that there are wheel-based games that, Wheel of Fortune is an interesting concept, right? And as a game show, I think it works great. But the Wheel of Enormous Proportions, it just doesn't work. The wheel part is unrelated. It's almost unrelated to the trivia. It is like that's the way it feels.
Yeah, and it also feels completely unrealized. Like it's just spinning a wheel, and you get points. But as we kind of established, like very early on, in a lot of these games, the points don't matter all that much.
Yeah.
Like for that one, like I think I won one of the rounds, and I was like, okay, I didn't give a shit.
Yeah, even to the extent that getting a lot of points in a Jackbox game matters because you win. The Wheel of Enormous Proportions is so random; it doesn't make you feel like winning was even your fault.
Yeah, like I didn't do the best in the trivia portion.
Yeah,
I'm just extremely lucky.
Like there was one of the rounds where I absolutely demolished the trivia, and I guess I did okay in points, but I didn't win. I didn't do that great. Like it was random and it kept missing me.
Yep.
Even though I had half the wheel. Like I literally owned half the wheel because I crushed trivia so bad, so strongly, and then it like landed on me almost. I'm not even sure if it landed on me once that round.
It was one of the games that gave me the biggest feeling that, especially during the spinning proportion, like this shit could be rigged. Like
yeah. Well, also the spin it. Also, I'll say this: most of the phone-based interaction is actually quite well done. But for some reason, the wheel spinning thing it's just not satisfying to spin the wheel either. Like the spinning, like the animation on your phone as you're trying to drag the wheel to spin it, it doesn't work very well.
Yeah.
So the one part of spinning the wheel that's actually fun, dragging it on your phone, is poorly implemented.
And I have like all sorts of haptics enabled on my phone, and then nothing doing.
Yep.
Yeah, so that one wasn't too great.
The
But,
wheel of enormous disappointment.
yeah. Now, the one that I thought was actually really interesting, probably the most interesting game in this pack to me, was Weapons Drawn. And this is a murder mystery. Really, really stripped down murder mystery. And honestly, it's really fun. So, because it's also a drawing game. And basically the idea is that you have a calling card, and the calling card is a letter from your name. So having the name as actually matters in this particular game, and then one of the letters in your name gets picked, and you have to put that into a drawing of a murder weapon. And then later, when you murder someone, and you have to guess who brought a particular, because you draw murder weapons and then you invite guests, and so you have to guess who invited the guest to murder them, and then after the guests are murdered, everyone gets to see what weapon was used to murder the guests, and then but you had to put a letter of your name into the drawing of the murder weapon. And so it's sort of this like it's interesting, and so you can obviously put extra things into that drawing, so it looks like different letters are in there, and so it's a fun one. I like it.
Yeah, and we played once where the first time we played it, we didn't really know what the game was, so we just put in like funny names like we usually do. And then the second time we put our actual names, and I think putting in our actual names sucks some of the fun out of it. Like, as long as you don't metagame it by just putting a name that's just the 12 most used letters of the alphabet, like, like.
I mean,
whatever.
you could also put in random crap that will either help or really screw you over.
Yeah, depending on what everybody else does. Because when we put in our real name, we had 5 people. And all of us had the letter A in our names. And one person's calling card was A. So we literally could not pinpoint that person if we tried.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I think to the viewers out there, if you're going to play this, come up with some wacky-ass names. I think it makes the game more fun.
Yeah, I think that the game, wacky names are good, and I think probably longer names with weirder characters are probably...
Weirder characters, maybe names that aren't too long. Like, you don't want to just like have something that's just way too many unique letters so that you can just deflect the blame all the time.
I suppose that's true.
Just don't think too hard about it. Make a funny name. Have some fun with this one because it's pretty fun.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's the Jackbox. That's our overview of the Jackbox series. A lot of really fun ones.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. Jackbox produces a fair amount of quality, and what you'll find is that they tend to bring that quality with them to the new party packs that they release. They'll make improvements on the ones that work well, and they're always willing to experiment and throw together some wacky ideas.
Yeah,
So,
totally.
Yeah, hopefully our guide points you to, maybe your favorites are different than ours, but we hope that you're able to find the types of games that you
as long as you don't like Joke Boat. Fuck Joke Boat. Fuck Joke Boat.
Wow. One other thing to note is that if you want the latest version of Drawful that's not Drawful Animate, Drawful 2 actually wasn't in any of the party packs. That's like the one weird omission.
Oh yeah, it was sold
it's
separately.
It's out there standalone.
Yeah, I mean, Drawful 2 is so fun, it's worth buying on its own.
Yeah, because like the first Drawful only has 1 color. The second Drawful has 2 colors. Drawful Animate has 3 colors. Crazy.
Yep.
And
Can't wait for 4 colors in the next Drawful.
And let me tell you, the addition of the extra colors like makes you able to make some much funnier drawings.
Yeah.
Also, one thing that we didn't bring up about drawful, there's no undo button. That will hurt and help you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because sometimes you'll mess up because, again, you're drawing on a touch screen. So...
It can get tricky.
Yeah, you can definitely get into situations where, oh, I did not mean for that. Like, oh, that circle is not a circle. And, yeah. Good shit.
Yeah, if you're anything like me, you'll develop a reputation as the guy who draws terrible drawings. How did you draw so badly?
Yeah, well, if you've listened to this podcast and you've played a bunch of these Jackbox games, you can let us know which ones are your favorites and why at angrysunzone@outlook.com or send us a DM on Twitter at angrysunzone. I don't know if you'd like to see us stream some Jackbox games. Give us a shout. Maybe we'll look into that.
And we'll rope you into being the audience.
Yeah, I hope you guys had a great time today listening to this overview of the Jackbox series, and we'll see you next time.
Whenever the next time is.
Yeah, I was about to say next week, and no.
Yes, we are a semi-regular podcast.
Semi-regular. Sometimes weekly, sometimes not. Release date on arbitrary days of the week.
Release date on days ending in Y.